Welcome to the Stoppage Time edition of the Pitch to Pro podcast. This is a highlight reel of some of the best moments from the show so far, and every other week we will be bringing you a special 5 to 7 minute segment featuring the best stories, tales, and moments of the podcast.
We are really digging into entrepreneurship and innovation as our next kind of driver of our economy here.
Yeah.
And we also have a DEI lens. So as we've changed demographically, as a lot of your listeners may know, when the council was formed, 96% white in Northwest Arkansas. Now we're roughly 1/3 underrepresented minorities. Rogers and Springdale are both majority Hispanic school districts. So a lot of change here, a lot of change happening with all the growth. And, as we will probably talk about, projected to be up to 1 million people here over the next 20 years, spread across all of these different communities.
Yeah. What is, do you believe in the 20 years, or do you think maybe even sooner with, what is it now, plus 38?
36 a day, net new. Based on the people that have come before me and follow this, they've under-projected our growth every 5 years. So, that's a lot of growth, but we expect us to reach that probably before that milestone. And so when you think about infrastructure, how you do city planning, like the decisions we make now are determine the future.
Exactly.
And so we're really looking at what happened to other cities. How can we not have congested highways? How can we have teachers, firefighters, others live in the communities where they serve? If you grew up in D.C., you're in inner city. If you are a teacher in D.C., you're probably living in Virginia or Maryland and commuting in. That is the last thing that we want to have happen. If you're a teacher in Bentonville, you need to be able to live in Bentonville. Or if you're a firefighter in Rogers, you need to be able to live in Rogers if you choose. And so we are trying to work with the cities and the counties, the businesses to make sure that we have the right rules in place, development rules, development codes, so that we can preserve what we love about this place.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's an interesting piece. A lot of times people think about looking forward, but in order to look forward and plan, to your point, a lot of maybe what you guys do is look at some similar markets and stories and trajectories of, hey, we think we may be like here in the next 15 years. What went well for those guys on their journey? Yeah. And then maybe what were some pitfalls that we very much like to avoid, and what can we do differently?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure a lot of what you guys do too is study other markets that may be similar size and kind of similar issues that you might deal with.
We do several things like that. Every year we put out a State of the Region report and we compare ourselves. We've selected about 5 comparator regions. We actually changed that 5 years ago because we had kind of blown those other ones out of the water. And we are starting to add, and those have been economic analysis metrics.
Right.
We're starting to factor in growth around that, traffic and other things. And there's a lot of communities out there that we can point to. Austin, Texas being probably the one that most people refer to. I think they would admit that they weren't aggressive enough on some of the decisions that they made, and that's harmed their quality of life through traffic and a lot of congestion and other things. And so we do look to a lot of cities to try to balance that out. And a lot of it's education. If you're in a small town here, maybe you didn't travel a lot. Do you know about what's happened in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how they made good decisions in some neighborhoods and poor decisions in others? So a lot of what we do is try to bring experts here to educate people, sometimes take people to other places to see how it can work, how it should work. And then add what we want to be here. Ultimately, it's up to the local people and the local decision makers to decide the community that they want. We just want them to be empowered through information to make those decisions.
It's actually a really good point. I think a lot of times, especially in communities where people have born, raised, small business owners maybe, or decision makers in key communities that maybe haven't visited other parts of the country as many as others, or other parts of the world even. I think, to your point, a lot of what I've enjoyed has been the diversity of thought that's been brought into Northwest Arkansas as we've grown, and that 60% that's not from here. But it's interesting to actually see how that's impacted, actually the growth of the region within the strategy that we take to how we learn about other markets, and not just ourselves, but also business owners and decision makers and lawmakers in our region to go and look at and see it
and then when they go, like many of us, we're going to be a tourist, so we gotta go to the tourism spots, and we're not going to think about, oh, well, how did that bike trail end up there, and wow, that's really neat how they did this, and so when you go on these kinds of trips, or we bring people in, it's just a different lens.
That's such an interesting point, and I love that you guys do that. That's such an interesting point. So to that point, what are some challenges facing the region today that you guys are trying to, in those discussions and in those learning sessions, prepare for, think about? What are some of those things that are facing us today?
Yeah, there's quite a few. We talked about growth. I think that is going to be our ultimate challenge, because those are hard, long-term decisions, and people don't always make the best decisions unless there's a crisis. It's not a crisis yet. A lot of people think maybe there is, but can we make the decisions? A lot of times you see these other cities, by the time they realize what's happened, then they make decisions and it's almost too late. So I think that's really important for us. But on the other side of the equation is we really want to focus kind of where we are with our momentum on economic growth. We have these anchor employers that we've leveraged for a generation now. So Walmart, Tyson, J.B. Hunt, Simmons, George's, the University of Arkansas continues to grow. All these companies continue to grow. But that doesn't create the kind of vibrant economy we need for the future. So we are trying to focus really on startups, scale-ups, bringing in early stage venture funds, which is a shortfall in every region. How can we do that most efficiently? If you are the next Sam Walton, can you build your company right here just as he did a generation ago or 2 generations ago? That is what we want to see happen. And that's going to help us if there's a downturn in any market or anything like that. We'll have a robust economy that can continue to lift this community up. And so that's what's really, so it's like the opposite ends of the same coin. We need to continue to grow in the right way. And then how do we preserve what we love about this place as we grow?
Thank you for joining us for this stoppage time special of the Pitch to Pro podcast. If you've enjoyed the conversation, you can click watch the full episode here. Be sure to tune in next Thursday for a new episode of the Pitch to Pro podcast, the official podcast of USL Arkansas. Available on YouTube, Instagram, and everywhere you get your podcasts.